bring in my buddy Nole Lawrence-Stample. Of course, he won a national title with Florida State, also played defensive tackle for the Cleveland Browns, and he joins Rick Ballou on Into the Night. It's been a couple of minutes. Good to see you. How you doing?
Yeah, good seeing you too. It has been a while, but I'm happy to be back in the booth talking with you, man.
Yeah, 2-10. We talked all last year. Just a disaster for Florida State. We had a conversation a year ago about winning, 18, 19 consecutive games, getting blown out by Georgia, and then not allowing that to linger. Was that the primary reason for a 2-10, or do you think it was a lot of other things that occurred as well?
I can't even count the amount of reasons on why I feel like we ended up with the result that we got. It's hard to even discuss in one conversation, but I think it was overlooked. I think every single person overlooked it, and it sucks because Norvell is our leader, and I think that he overlooked it the most. He just kind of counted on everyone's individual coaches and everyone's players and everyone's kind of situation to be as good as it was last year, and it wasn't. And I don't think those checks and balances got checked correctly, and we got blown out. Yeah,
it's the worst season that Florida State has ever had. It was totally unexpected. Now you got to respond. And, they've made household changes, coaching changes, personnel changes, transfer portal once again, a better effort in recruiting. Certainly, what he's doing right now, which is non-binding until they sign, off to a really good start. But, more than 50% of the roster has changed at Florida State.
Yeah, so much of it. And it's crazy because, I haven't been really kind of on social media or certain things, but I'm always kind of in tune on what's going on. Right. And it has been a kind of a transfer of ethics, a transfer of what's going on behind the scenes. It's been everything to try to figure out what happened, how to fix it. Is it personnel? Is it design? Is it back in the back end of everything? And I think we're going to see a completely different team this year. Whether that is good or bad, I think we see a completely different team because Norvell had to kind of start from scratch.
Yeah, and I think it's desperation for Mike Norvell. I tell you now, the biggest concern I have, it's year 6, and I honestly, objectively, do not know if he can coach. I'm not trying to be smart here. I mean, I know he won, 19 in a row, but and you can go back to Jacksonville State, not playing prevent defense. There's been a lot of mistakes, in-game mistakes. I hate to say that about a Florida State coach getting ready for his 6th year. I don't know if he can coach.
Winning in college football is extremely difficult, and it is harder than really people think, right? And it's hard to say that Norvell doesn't have the aptitude to coach on a high level just because of what he's been able to do. And I do agree. Watching those games last year were frustrating because you saw some things during the game that you wish was a simple adjustment. At least sitting on the couch would be a simple adjustment in order to fix. But not everything looks as black and white, obviously, as you know.
They call it love.
But I think Norvell has the aptitude in order to coach on a very high level. We've obviously seen it in the past. Personnel is obviously extremely important. Yeah. We are seeing a extreme change in college football. College football is completely different. It was only 10 years ago I was there, right? 9 years ago I was there, and it is a completely different ball game. It is night and day. So with that being the case, with all the changes and everything, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I know that coming up into this season, if we're seeing some of those still those mid-game issues that aren't being resolved, those things are going to unfortunately play a factor in his longevity of the team.
Now, Lawrence-Stample, our guest, former Florida State Seminole, business owner right here now in Jacksonville, now won a national title at FSU, also played professional football for the Cleveland Browns. So you bring in a new offensive coordinator, you bring in a new defensive coordinator. At least he is not being stubborn here. I think the change was forced. Now he can hopefully oversee everything that's going on. But Gus Malzahn is now going to be the play caller offensively.
Yeah, which I think is amazing. I personally love the fact that we're going to have a different play caller, Gus Malzahn, which has proven to have success in college football. And he's had it on a bunch of different places and a bunch of different levels. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. Obviously, they've coached together in the past as well. So that's great. But I think we have a few pieces to the puzzle in place for Gus. Obviously, injury could plague that. But I think Gus, being the play caller, is going to have a big role to play. But I think it needed to be separated, and I think right now we're in a better spot than we were last year.
All right, Thomas Castellanos takes over as the starting quarterback for Florida State. Really dropped the bomb on Seminole Nation with his comments, calling out Alabama. I'm shocked. You're 2-10. And by the way, Bama's wounded. They were 9-4. They're upset with a 9-4 in Tuscaloosa. As a former player, what did you make of what Thomas Castellanos said?
I'm super torn. I'm torn on it because one thing is, I always tell my boys, we got to keep the main thing, right? We don't want distractions. And when we start to do things that are distracting from keeping us playing ball, keeping that team kind of percolating and all the things that need to in order for us to come ready on that Saturday, it's tough. You don't want to see it, right? But at the same time, this is a gladiator sport that we're playing, right? Put up or shut up. Like, if that's how you feel, go ahead and speak it. But we better come ready to play. And the people around you and the teammate and the tribe around you are going to have to respond. But at the end of the day, there's better ways to go about it. But this is a big boy sport.
When you were there, Jameis Winston was there, very controversial, said some things, but backed it up with play. Won a Heisman Trophy, won a national championship. The resume on Tommy Castellanos is that he got benched and he quit, walked away from BC with the season still going, has this relationship with Gus Malzahn. Florida State pays him. Then he comes out and makes this comment. If you were a devoted Florida State Seminole, which you were, and didn't go to the transfer portal, sat through at 2-10, was getting ready for this year, and this incoming quarterback made that comment, as a player right now, how would you handle that?
Again, I would have to look at, one, how things are going as far as training camp and how are things are going as far as like any just off-season play in general. And we have to have that same energy, right? We have to have that same energy, being a leader, being vocal, doing all the little things. And for when I hear that seems like it's the case. But I'm going to look at it and say, okay, if that's the case, then we better be ready to play.
Yeah,
like we better be ready to play. As a team, you're going to stick by your teammate, even though with the Jameses and all the different things that would happen, there was no time that anyone ever wavered. Right? We always support whatever's going on. Damn, that was stupid. But I love you. Like, we got to get through this. Now let's push forward and figure out how we can do that. And I think all he did was add fuel to the fire, and hopefully we're able to continue that confidence that he has.
Thought it was going to come out today. I don't know if it has. I haven't seen it, but listing who Mike Norvell is going to take with him to Charlotte. I think despite these comments, you got to bring Thomas Castellanos with you to these football meetings and have him, not say it was taken out of context, but maybe be a little bit more thorough in his explanation and try to dumb this down just a little bit. It may be hard to do. The other side would be, okay, no, he's not going with us for these football meetings. And then, the assumption may be that he's in the doghouse. But I think you have to be proactive here. Put him in front of the media and have him explain why he made those comments.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's a great idea. I definitely don't hear anything that is giving me any inclinations that he is out of control, right? Or he doesn't have some sort of understanding of like what is at stake and that they can't control that. So I would be surprised if that's not something that does happen. But I think a lot of the times things get out of hand when one, social media is involved. Two, when you're coming to a team that you felt like you should have been at a long time ago, you didn't get the scholarship that you wanted, and now you're here, and now you're kind of floating on cloud nine with an opportunity to pull a team that has the floor is gone. Yeah. There's no floor. So what does it matter? Let's go for it. So I think that's what he's feeling.
We won't get into personnel because we don't have the time, but I'm just looking here at their roster. 7 out of the 11 transfer portal players right now are listed as starters offensively, and 6 out of the 11 are listed as starters defensively for Florida State. We had this conversation a year ago. Remember talking about Marvin Jones Jr. and everyone else. Now that you had another year to digest it, this has become more common in college football. Every team is now really getting after the transfer portal. But when I give you those numbers as far as starters, How do you react to that?
It sounds like it's foreign. It doesn't even make sense. The fact that that's the case, especially since we just had a similar year the year prior, right? We just got rid of a ton of starters, and now we are doing the same thing. It makes a little bit more sense when you think about the act of how we went from being undefeated and then everyone going to the draft, us losing, and then now we're rebooting and recalibrating everybody. So that does make sense there. But at the end of the day, it's a tough task. Us bringing in a brand new defensive coordinator and us bringing in a defensive line coach and just all those personnels is. It still does make sense. Everyone is working on a brand new system as far as personnel is concerned, as well as these players are working on a brand new system as well. I think we will see some growing pains in that across the country. Every single year we'll see it. It's going to be who is prepared the most and who can make adjustments the quickest, but it's no longer the tried and true. We have this freshman coming in and now they're a sophomore and now they're a junior and they know the system. They've learned the system. Every nuance in the system is all built out. It's all going to be who can work on the fly.
And Tony White, they think very highly of. He's been a nominee for a couple of seasons at Nebraska for the Broyles Award. And this new scheme, this new defense is going to be very intriguing at Florida State. How about your buddies? How about your former teammates, guys that you're associated with who wore the garnet and gold? Is this just a mirage? Do most believe that this thing will get righted? What is going on?
So I would say the most thing we talk about is going to be the fact that you just don't see stuff like this happen in college football. It's just it's eerie in a way that you can have a dynasty like a powerhouse team like Florida State crumble like this so quickly. It is just weird in general. But I think that Seminoles it's a tribe, right? Yeah. So like we talk about more good things than bad things, and everything that has been at least discussed by me and some of my former teammates that we talk a lot about is going to be what's happening this year. Is Norvell going to be able to prove himself in some capacity? And then the last thing is going to be, what is our offensive line going to look like, right? Like, even though a lot of us are defensive linemen, what is our offensive line going to look like? I think our defensive line is going to look fairly solid. Okay. Our offensive line was supposed to be good last year, end up not being good. Our defensive line was not great last year. We were able to make some adjustments to where it somewhat held up. But, it's really going to be a toss-up as far as offensive line.
Between Florida State and the Jaguars and the offensive line, what a mystery. And we know 6 new bodies were brought in by James Gladstone, Tony Baselli, and Liam Cohen. But, you look at the offensive line, there's 4 new guys that are right now penciled in as starters. All 4 of them are redshirt seniors who played elsewhere. So we're talking about guys that are getting ready for their 5th year, do have experience, but again, we'll see how that all comes into play. Final moment with Nole Lawrence-Stample, who, of course, played his college football at Florida State, won a national title there. They're off to a really good start verbally now with recruiting for 2026. I mean, this is by far the best that Norvell has done. We know that there's been signing day flips going all the way back to Travis Hunter. I mean, some really good football players that he has lost. So in my opinion, and the people I talk to, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, but let's wait till signing day. I'm not going to get overly excited because of what has happened. But just your overall thought on what he's been able to do. I mean, obviously he's been pounding the pavement, and to this date, he's done a nice job.
Yeah, I want to say one of the biggest things that he got criticized for last year was recruiting. And it showed in the play that we just didn't have a lot, and we pulled from the portal, and it caused a lot of issues there. So I think Norvell has been able to kind of bounce back and prove that he can put together a good recruiting class and a good recruiting effort, and that's great to see. That's awesome to see. And when you have a strong class like that, one, I do think we'll be able to keep majority of our class. There's going to be some guys that aren't, but I think majority of the people that we want to keep, we will keep. I think we've been doing a good job at that, and I think the biggest thing that you see as far as the recruiting is when you have a strong recruiting class and you're able to keep, especially now that we've kind of had the transfers come in and had the offensive coordinator swap, and we're kind of at a concrete standstill, at least in going into the season with all of our coaching personnel, is you kind of see the players kind of buy in with each other as far as recruiting.
Yeah.
And the recruiting talks as far as recruits to recruits is one of the biggest recruiting aspects of it. If you can get some guys to kind of lock in and really buy in, other guys around that want to play with those guys will continue to make sure that the recruitment stays sound. And then also, a lot of guys want to come in and see Florida State back into a good light. What an upside for them to be able to come in and say, hey, we're a part of that class that was able to get Florida State back to where it needs to be, as well as everyone wants to get recruited by Florida State, no matter what, right? Yep. So, I think we're doing a great job. I think Norvell's doing a solid job.
Let's wrap with this, hypothetically speaking. You talk to Florida State fans, you talk to the experts. They'll tell you they're going to lose 4 games before the season starts. They tell you they're going to lose to Alabama, Florida, Miami, and at Clemson. All right, so that's an 8-4. But is this what it comes down to for Mike Norvell? Can they beat Pittsburgh? Can they go to Stanford and play at 10:30 at night, Niall? 10:30 at night. By the way, that's at Virginia. It's a Friday night game. Okay. Can you beat Wake Forest at home? Can you beat Vatech at home? Can you go to the snake pit of Raleigh, North Carolina, and win that game on a Friday? These are in order to save his job, I know my opinion is going to be if he loses those games, he's out. That's what it comes down to. Sure, an upset against one of those other 4 teams would be just incredible for the program. But what about being able to knock off these other teams, which they couldn't do a year ago?
Yeah, that's going to be tough, especially some of them, like you said, have their own obstacles outside of the team itself. And when you look at the schedule, I think, one, it starts really well. And I think this season is going to really be big. You talk about a momentum. You got to have momentum going into the season. I think they did a great job kind of crafting it out as far as the start of the season. I think playing Alabama first game overall is a great opportunity for us. A lot of people think differently. I think it is the absolute slam dunk for us. As long as we're prepared somewhat for that game, I think it will add momentum to the season. And then, we go into East Texas, and then we go into Kent State. I think those are obviously momentum games that we can build because we're really coming from nothing, right? Yeah. The floor is absolute gone. So if we can build any momentum there, I think the team and the locker room will really build. The confidence will build, and we'll see some guys start to emerge in which we wanted to see last year. But unfortunately, we got hit in the mouth before we even got out of bed.
Niall Lawrence-Stample.